In this section, we're going to start working on our CampaignShow component. Let's first get started by taking a look at our original mockup for this page and figure out what it really needs to do. All right, so here's our mockup. At the top, we definitely want to make sure our header gets put onto the page. Remember that we made that layout component to automatically take care of the header for us. So really, we just need to import our header and show it inside of CampaignShow, and we should be good to go. On the left-hand side, I want to show some details about this particular campaign. Under that, I want to have a button to go to view all the different requests that are tied to the campaign. And then on the right-hand side, we should have our form that allows people to contribute and become an approver. So let's first get started by placing our layout component that should get our header to appear on there as well. Back inside of my code editor, I'm going to find my CampaignShow component that we just created, and we'll import layout from up two directories, components, layout, like so. And then I'll place the layout component inside the render method. And remember, we want this layout component to always be the topmost component, or the most root component. So I'm going to make sure that the layout wraps this H3 that we already have in here. So I'm going to place a set of parentheses. I'm going to move the H3 inside that. I'm going to make sure I get rid of the semicolon at the end of that line, and then I'll wrap it with my layout, like so. All right, let's make sure that if we save this and check it out inside the browser, I just want to make sure that we get the header to show up successfully. All right, so back in the browser. All right, definitely looks good. So I'm still at CampaignShow, but I've got all my navigation buttons to navigate around the application. Now the next thing we have to do is going to be a little bit more challenging than that, to be sure. We want to show some details about a particular campaign. So looking at these particular stats, I want to show the balance, the minimum contribution, the number of pending requests, and the number of contributors we have. Now let's remember how we pull information like this off the contract. We have a bunch of automatically generated get methods because we marked most of our variables as public. However, we don't have one single function to call here. We have like 4 different functions to call. These are all 4 different variables that are tied to our contract, which means we might end up having to make 4 separate function calls just to get the information about this stuff. I think that making 4 separate calls over to our contract is a little bit maybe excessive. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe you and I should create a single helper method on our contract called something like, I don't know, get summary or something like that, that returns a summary of all the important statistics related to an individual campaign. So rather than having to make 4 separate calls to the Ethereum network to get this information, we would only have to make 1 call and then have that one single function return all the information that we care about. So I think we'll take that approach because it's going to allow us to just render our page much faster. Rather than making 4 calls like in a row or 4 calls in parallel, we just make 1 single call and we get all the information that we need. That's definitely going to require a modification to our deployed contract, however. So let's take a pause right here. We're going to come back in the next video and we're going to make a change to our contract to make sure that we have some type of function to call that returns a summary of all these important metrics. So I'll see you in just a second.